It's Sandra. Welcome to another episode of Asexualise, my asexual life, where I share my own asexual life journey in order to help you in yours. So subscribe and hit the bell icon right now. So today's episode is all about dating in the 21st century, and I'm going to be discussing things that aren't good when you're dating in 2024, especially if you are asexual. I want to read some of my diary confessions of a hyper romantic 78 life lessons to ace your life book. So, Diary Confessions of a Hyper Romantic Asexual. This book is available on Amazon and it will help you with dating and relationships. So, I'm going to page 210 now of the printed version of this book if you've got your own copy. I get pissed off, to be quite frank with you, that women who conform to what society sees as the right way to think, dress, behave, and act are sometimes given more credit than those with natural beauty, who do not need to wear a ton of makeup or any makeup to be beautiful. I get pissed off that in order to teach a certain level, oh, sorry, I'll repeat that again. I get pissed off that in order to reach a certain level in certain areas of your life, you're meant to conform. Well, it's not happening. I won't be someone I'm not just to please others. In fact, I should be encouraged, just like so many other women should be, to be individualist, non-conformist, and kick-ass confident in their own right. Do you know how much guts it takes to be you in a world that is trying to make you conform when you want to do things differently? It takes far more than buying an elegant flowery dress to enhance your femininity. There are guys out there whose whole business is about teaching guys how to be playboys, how to treat women mean to keep them keen, how to play with women's emotions, mess with their head, play games, all in the name of how many women they can date at one time and get laid. One such guy from Instagram liked one of my posts, and this seems socially acceptable, as this guy has thousands of followers and does courses for people in how to master this. I wish I could say I'm making this shit up, but I'm not. Yet here I am, a genuine girl who loves deeply and who does have a strong desire to meet the right Indian guy and settle down in an unconventional way with him, but who is true to herself and realizes she has kissing and romance needs that she wants to be met, and she could end up being single forever, and she likes a younger guy for a serious and committed relationship, not just a hookup or a hookup at all. She consciously allows herself to do this. And why should this be frowned upon and scorned at by many? Why FS, FFS, FFS, for fuck's sake. I actually like the guys in some way who I'm allowing to kiss me. My intentions are pure, not bad. And if I can make that guy feel loved, special, adored in some way, okay. It's more like he's going to be sexually excited over me. Then what am I doing wrong? Nothing. Plenty of younger people kiss random people in clubs. It's pretty much standard club culture. So why are people so shocked when I do it? Because I tell the world about it. Some people have and intimacy and sex-based business that teaches people how to have orgasmic sex and intimacy in the bedroom and play with sexual energy. And it's fine to support this type of business and to interview these people and tell the world about it, but not me. What I do is just be me and encourage other asexuals and people just to be their bold, beautiful self. It's an act of confident self-love for me to get my kissing and romantic needs met by some guys in clubs. And it's a huge achievement that I'm able to have the confidence to do this and not care what others think, when I couldn't even stand a touch on the shoulder in the past. This is true. I couldn't even stand a touch on the shoulder at one point. And when at the start of my asexual journey, I was too scared and anxious to have any intimacy or closeness with heterosexual guys because of the expectation of sex at the end of the night that I didn't want. Now I can have some physical intimacy without sex, and this is something that should be taught to others because many asexuals want intimacy without sex, and there are disabled people in the world who can't have sex but who still desire intimacy of some sort. If you ever ask a good heterosexual guy who loves his woman what it feels like to not have sex, they may be disappointed and frustrated and longing. But when I hear guys say, she won't even kiss me or cuddle me or even touch me anymore, that's when I hear the excruciating sadness and pain in their voices. That's when they feel unloved and uncared for the most, like an abandoned baby or child. And right in that moment, just for their girl, their woman, to hold them close to their chest and stroke their hair can make them feel loved, cherished, and adored. Sometimes guys in clubs let me stroke their hair and run my fingers through it. I love doing this, especially with their permission. Some guys get annoyed with it after a while, so I stop. But most guys enjoy that, who want that for at least a time because it feels nourishing, caring, thoughtful, and kind. It also can affect their cool hairstyle, so it depends on what their needs are at the time. My whole point is I should be damn proud of how far I've come in my intimacy journey, especially as an asexual person who used to have extreme social anxiety and who wasn't assertive years ago and who didn't even know what boundaries were. Prior to when I did the pattern changing course was safe, stop abuse for everyone, and my business and me should be taken just as seriously and with as much respect and high regard as those teaching intimacy and sex and doing that for a living. If I can help just one person to go from being socially anxious to bold, brave, and out there, and not and to be confident to be around heterosexuals whilst being fully aware of incompatibility issues and to live a life of no regrets and not care what others think, then I will consider that a great achievement. So I'm concluding that I've done that with myself and I'm proud of the brave soul I've become. So I was actually in the Mirror newspaper online as being into younger guys. So yeah, an asexual cougar, but not wanting sex with them. So not everything they said was 100% accurate. But yeah. So anyway, life lesson 60. What some people frown upon and believe to be your weaknesses are often some of your greatest strengths. So don't listen to the naysayers, the people who don't understand you, and the people who don't recognize your unique gifts to the world. That's their problem, not yours. Just keep being unique, you, because nobody does you better. This is from Diary Confessions of a Hyper-Romantic Asexual, 78 Life Lessons to Ace Your Life. Grow and grab a copy of that so that you can read the rest of the book. But my point is, by reading this to you is to understand the problems of 21st century dating, I should say, dating in 2024. So I actually wrote this book in 2023 and published it this year. So I was still editing it this year. So it highlights some of the problems with society. So in society, people tend to value looks, they tend to value social norms and what people think other people should be. It's like a herd following the crowd. And so women are conditioned that they're meant to be this feminine person. They're meant to be accepting. Oh, I've got an itchy nose tonight. I'm meant to be like accepting and empathetic and kind and caring. But men should equally be that way too. And there's a lot of masculine, feminine roles that people talk about in society. But at the end of the day, the only way men and women, any gender, can understand each other is if we both embrace both our masculine sides and our feminine sides. That's the only way we can come together to truly understand each other and be in healthy relationships, I personally believe. And this book highlights some of the issues with modern society is the fact that in order for lots of people to be acceptable or to be admired or want to have loads of men after them, a lot of guys go after women that have got a certain body type, a certain look. And in society in general, a lot of people that wear loads of makeup, that wear certain clothes, that show their boobs or their butt, that do certain things, they're seen as like the person that men should aspire to get. But I can tell you from past dating experience that if a foreign guy, for example, dates a woman that's promiscuous, they would consider promiscuous, like with their boobs showing, with their butt on display, tight figure hugging clothing. Actually, a lot of those guys from foreign countries, they don't actually like that type of woman to be in a relationship with. They just idolize her and fantasize about her to be a temporary release, if you like, and see what kind of trophy I've got, unfortunately. And so some of the time, even the most attractive women or the most kind of sexy women, they have guys who are after them, but they're after them for all the wrong reasons. For the reasons to stroke their ego, for the reasons that they want a trophy rather than an actual human being. But unfortunately, because society views looks and certain things as that's what everyone's got to aspire to, this encourages this type of thing to happen. And like I said in the book, there are guys out there who literally base the business they have on teaching guys how to hook up with women. This is what we're dealing with in the 21st century, in 2024. There are guys out there that are teaching guys things that aren't good and healthy for them, but they're doing it a way that's playing on guys' insecurities, just like there's a lot of business out there that plays on women's insecurities. The whole of society, a lot of the time, is based on people's insecurities. This filters out not just from dating and relationships throughout those, it filters throughout our whole lives. A lot of the time we are doing things, we are taking courses, we are trying to improve ourselves, we are listening to what people say for two reasons. One is for personal growth, and we do all have issues. We all have trauma usually. We all have baggage. We all have difficulties. We all have triggers a lot of the time, and we need to sort them out. But also, there are businesses that play on our insecurities on purpose to make us think there's something wrong with us, so that we will buy their product or service so that we get better. So in general, in business, there's either people creating products and services for demand, or people are creating the demand for the products and services. i.e., creating insecurities. Social media creates insecurities within people to do with the looks, the clothes they have to wear, to look a certain part, how a guy should look, how a woman should look. They do all this for insecurities because then they can make a ton of money out of it. You know, it's like buy these clothes to look cool, buy these glasses to look great, pose in this type of pose with filters to make you look at your best, and get the car and get the girl and all this. And it's just a lot of the time for ego, and it's to play on people's insecurities. And we're dealing with this in this day and age, and it's really sad, but this is the truth a lot of the time. I don't conform to society's norms because I don't usually wear makeup. I hardly ever wear makeup. And I also do kiss younger guys in clubs sometimes. I haven't done it for ages. Like October last year was towards the end of October. I think that's the last time I kissed a guy in a club. Which is what I partly wrote about in this Diary Confessions book. And my point being is that if a older guy is in a romantic setting with a girl or hooks up with a girl, right, he's usually praised. But if an older girl like gets with a younger guy, it depends like who's around as to where she'll get praised or where she'll get like told, oh, frowned upon. And it's usually not other guys that frown upon an older girl being with a younger guy. Usually other guys are like, yay. But a lot of women actually frown upon older girls being with younger guys. I think that's because a lot of the time that older women are married with kids of their own and they're jealous and they can't understand it because they've got children. I don't have children. I've never ever wanted children in my life. So I don't think of younger guys as kids or anything. When I'm talking about kids, like I'm talking about guys in their 20s. For some reason, you know, because a lot of women have children, they tend to think even at 21 their son's like still a child or something, which isn't true. But that's the way they think. And so to them it seems weird. But also there's women who'll be in relationships with much older guys. They might be 15, 20 years older than them. And it's okay for them to be in a relationship with an older guy, but when it comes to a younger guy being with an older woman and an age difference, then they don't like it. So in society in general, there's kind of one rule for one and another rule for everyone else. So my point being is there's a lot of stereotypes, there's a lot of conditioning, there's a lot of people telling people what they should and shouldn't be. And, you know, there are genuinely people out there, apparently, such as women who will not date or be in a relationship with a guy who's shorter than them. There's some women that will not date or be in a relationship with guys unless they've got a certain income or they've got a car or they've got a certain body type. But these things don't make for a great relationship or a healthy relationship. The only thing that makes for a healthy and great relationship is for people to have open, honest communication, directly speak about their needs, and if some behaviors are not feeling good, they discuss it. Just because a woman's got a great looking body or a guy's got a great six pack doesn't mean they're a healthy person to be in a relationship with, especially if the reason they've got that is because they're being driven by what other people think of them, because it means they care so much about appearances that behind closed doors they could be doing something else. So when we're dealing with dating in the 21st century, especially on dating apps, it is literally swipe culture. And what it programs a lot of people to do and be is never satisfied with a particular person. The dating apps are designed to keep you on them so they can keep feeding you adverts and stuff like this, so they can keep selling you stuff, right? And they can keep you hooked on their monthly membership. So they want you to stay on the app as long as possible. So they'll do things like it's gamifying it, with the swiping, that's like gamifying, so that you get extra dopamine hit to keep you hooked on the dating apps. So if you're going on a dating app such as Badoo, for example, you'll be swiping, swiping, swiping left or right. And it's just like it wastes actually a lot of hours of your time. I'm not active on Badoo anymore. I did do a shorts video early because they apparently got a new feature. And I was gonna see if like I could actually see it on there, but I can't even find it on there. Which might be because I'm not really active on there anymore. So a lot of the time, people are being trained and conditioned to swipe and never be satisfied to actually settle with someone. So there's a difference between settling for someone who is not really the person that's suitable for you and deciding to settle on someone because you see the potential to grow together and you meet them where they're at and you're both willing to put the time, energy, and effort and work into making a relationship work, realizing that neither of you are perfect. You both have flaws. You both have things that aren't good that you need to overcome, both together and as individuals. So dating can be really difficult. Like on apps, it is swipe culture. A lot of it's go by looks and stuff. But I would encourage you, however much conditioning there is in the world, to still be you. Because at the end of the day, the person who is looking for you is more likely to be able to see you if you stand out than if you blend into the crowd. So if, for example, you're on dating apps or dating sites, choose natural pictures. Most of the people on dating apps these days are specifically doing poses on purpose to grab, for example, women's attention. So I talk about guys grabbing women's attention because I'm only interested in guys. But some of the women on dating apps, they're trying to get guys into their OnlyFans club. That's the only reason they're on dating apps. They are trying to get money out of guys, free phones, free holidays, from what I hear or heard in the past from guys. So, and some of them do like hooking up. Some of them don't want anything serious. So just because it's a woman doesn't mean to say that they don't like hooking up. I don't like hooking up. I prefer to be in a serious, committed relationship. However, I have awareness of myself. I do have kissing needs. So if I do want to kiss a guy, if I go to a club, for example, and I feel comfortable enough to do it, then I'll allow myself to do it if I want to. But it's good for me to train myself to not need that as much as possible. Because when we need things, it can get to be addictive, right? And dating apps are very addictive. The only way you get off them is by literally saying, I've had enough of this. I'm wasting my time and I can fulfill it with so much more. So I actually get more work done now. I'm more productive and I enjoy my dates better because I'm not on dating apps. I don't want to be on dating apps actively anymore at the moment. So in the 21st century, we're dealing with like swipe culture, which is very intoxicating. It encourages people to try and keep looking for the perfect person that doesn't actually exist. It encourages avoidant people to continue avoiding without actually working on their avoidant attachment style, realizing that you can't have a healthy relationship whilst you're avoiding intimacy, right? Intimacy is part of a healthy relationship. If you're avoiding intimacy, you're never going to have a healthy relationship. And so for an anxiously attached person like me, dating is very tough as well because I get anxiously attached. And to be honest with you, it's a lot less nerve-wracking me not doing dating stuff anymore. Because when I was on the dating apps, I don't mind being rejected. Actually, for me, it was a benefit because I'm like, oh, that's good. Reject me. That's fine because I got anxiety anyway, which I don't want to have. And I only get anxiety really if a guy's serious about me or interested and reciprocating that back. So actually, when I first went on dating apps, I don't think I liked rejection so much, but then I just got so used to it. And that's what you have to do. If you want to put yourself out there for dating, you have to practice being rejected because once you practice being rejected multiple times, it doesn't bother you anymore. Like it's water off a duck's back, and you understand that dating is a process of filtering out the wrong people as much as it is to find the right person for you. So you have to filter out multiple people all the time. We have to be trying to weed out the ones that aren't right for us as soon as possible so they don't waste our time. But it is a minefield out there. Guys have been trained for years and conditioned to believe they have to be this macho person. They have to like go to the gym and have a six pack because otherwise women won't like the way they look. They have to be protective, but also not, women want them to show vulnerability, but guys are conditioned from being boys to think that showing emotions is weak, to showing vulnerability is weak, to showing that kindness, caring, and compassion even might be seen as weak. Anything with like feelings and sensitivity and empathy is often seen as feminine qualities, but guys have to have that too. Guys do need to embrace that too, because it's part of being human. Every human needs to have these healthy qualities of having sympathy, empathy, compassion, kindness, consideration, thoughtfulness, respect. And so some of these might be seen traditionally as women's roles, but it's not. It's a role of every human being to be like that with every other human being. Guys get worried about their looks. Guys get worried about what other people think of their looks. Guys can get bullied for their looks if they don't fit in with what other guys have been conditioned to believe is the right way for a guy to be. Some guys who are at school with long hair, for example, because they like long hair, they'll get taken the mickey out of for being a girl when they're not a girl. It's just that everyone perceives guys should have short hair and not long hair because women have long hair. If guys wear makeup, that'll be seen as like wrong. But actors wear makeup, guy actors wear makeup just like female actors do. So why should that matter? And let's be honest, if you are looking for things like a certain height and you're not flexible on stuff like that, you could be missing out on a really good opportunity. I personally couldn't care less how tall the guy is. I can't care where he's shorter than me or taller than me. I have a preference for skinny guys, not muscly guys, which most women would not be attracted to traditionally, because most women are conditioned to think that muscles are macho, that a muscly guy can protect a woman, fend people off, so she can feel protected than that and be hard and strong. And some guys who are big, muscly guys, they're still very sensitive guys. Others are taught to repress and suppress their emotions and they just push it down. And so you've got guys out there that are being very frustrated with pent up anger and emotions, not able to express it in the way they need to. And that's what's causing a lot of the male mental health problems these days. They're taught to repress and suppress their emotions, be a certain way, which is seen as manly, because if they're not that certain way, then they'll be like too feminine. They're seen as like, be a tough guy, don't show your emotions, don't cry, because a weakness, it's not a weakness. It's called being human. And suppressing and repressing emotions. I'm mixing my words up tonight. Suppressing and repressing emotions is so unhealthy. It makes guys a lot of the time void of emotions because they numb themselves out. And this then doesn't help when they try to get into a relationship with a woman, for example, because a woman can't relate to that. She's like, I'm feeling emotional. I'm having feelings. I want to talk to you. But you're not receptive or responsive. You're just checked out. And so it becomes like this tug of war between being with the one you really care about and also having distance and avoidant behaviors a lot of the time. So this can be really difficult. And stereotypes still do exist, unfortunately, a lot in dating. Like, I'm not active on Badoo anymore, but I did go on there to try and find the new feature, and I did just click on people nearby. I didn't scroll through that. I just clicked, and the first guys came up, and it's just like a lot of them just look like standard posy pictures, like model type pictures. They were posing. It's like no one usually goes in those positions a lot of the time when they're in natural conversation with a woman. If you are trying to be something you're not, you'll get found out, and it will end in tears and heartache and heartbreak and pain for either you or the other person or both of you. It's better to be yourself. So if you're going on a dating app or dating site, post normal, natural pictures of yourself. That's what I've done on Badoo. Even though I did it a long time ago, there's, but ones where you are having fun, right? Ones where you are out doing things you enjoy. I've posted pictures of myself before where I went to there was like a dinosaur event, like robotic dinosaur event in my city. So I posted photos like that on my dating apps at the time. I posted photographs of me when I was at Disneyland Paris. I've posted photographs of me when I'm just sat on a bench smiling, just in nice clothes that I feel comfortable and confident in. So as an asexual person, don't feel you've got to put your body on display, because a lot of guys love an authentic smiling face. Why? Because not many women look like that anymore. Most of the time, the camera's pointing down at their boobs or down at their ass or down at their arched back where the boobs and bum both stick out. But if you're just there naturally smiling, you actually stand out more. So do you guys who actually pose naturally for the camera. Of course, if you're looking miserable, then you're not looking approachable. So you do need to smile in it. And if you're looking really untidy, like you can't be bothered to look after yourself, then yeah, of course, that's a red flag to someone, because like if you don't care about your appearance, you're not going to care about taking care of that person who's thinking about getting into a possible relationship with someone. Right? You have to take care of yourself. If you neglect yourself, you're likely to neglect someone else. Right? This is something I also talk about in my Diary Confessions of a Hyper-Romantic Asexual book. So, you might neglect someone emotionally. You might neglect to, get food for someone else, because if you don't eat properly yourself and stuff like this. So bear in mind that you do need to take natural photographs of yourself. But if you have got problems of neglection, for example, with yourself, you need to work on that before you get into a relationship. You shouldn't be going to a relationship when you neglect yourself. That's not a healthy relationship. You're not having healthy behaviors. So you need to get therapy to find out why you're neglecting yourself and sort that out and be more confident in yourself and grow self-love, self-confidence, and self-esteem. Because people who love themselves don't neglect themselves. They really care about themselves. They want themselves to be happy. It's only people who are unhappy with themselves that neglect themselves, right? So work on it. Work on finding out how to not do that with yourself and develop better coping strategies and mechanisms, such as journaling, for example. So when you're asexual, it's very difficult out there because a lot of people on dating sites want to hook up. They do want sex. A lot of the time, it's a deal breaker for them. On Badoo, they do have a category that you can say you're asexual and sexual orientation, but you still can't filter by asexuals and look for other asexuals, which is really bad in my opinion. But on Tinder, I believe as well, they got a category for asexuals because it's on their channel, their Tinder channel on YouTube, that they do have a category for asexuals. But Tinder is known as hookup culture. It's known as specifically go on there to hook up, as in meet for sex. So when you're asexual, you need to know that it's okay to put natural photographs, right? Particularly if you're smiling in clothes that you feel comfortable and confident in. and to showcase your personality through your words, to put in your bio that you're asexual in sexual orientation. And you can say what that means for you. If you're not interested in sex, say that in your bio, because it's better to be upfront with someone than have someone start messaging you and getting attracted and attached to them and then it not work out, because you're both going to get your hearts broken, or at least you're going to get your heart broken. I don't want that for you. So be very precise and specific. Do not wait till months down the line to tell them this, right? Because for some people, having no sex is an absolute deal breaker, and that's it. And so you should end the connection there and say, I wish you well, but we're definitely both looking for different things. So let's move on to find the right person for us, because we're not right for each other. And that might hurt, but you've got to do it. The sooner you do it, the better it is. Right? But there'll be a few people out there in the world that value you as a person more than they value the sex. And if they don't, they're not your person. It's better to be single and not have to have the pressure of having sex if you don't want it, and not have to have the fear of them leaving you for another person or going off behind your back with someone else, because you can give them what they needed, or having endless amount of arguments and fights and stuff. So be upfront about your asexuality and actually make sure that you talk about it as well. You can't just put it in your bio, because a lot of people don't understand what asexuality is. I know you probably understand it because you've been in the realm of asexuality a lot and you expect other people to understand it probably, but a lot of people don't. Even if they see the word asexual, a lot of the time they think it means you're really sexual, unless they see other things saying that you don't want sex or like sex. And a lot of people on dating apps and dating sites do not read bios. Yes, you heard right, they do not read bios. On Badoo, often encourages people to swipe 50 times to get a match. 50 times, 50. They are literally just treating you like a number. So make sure when you're doing your bio, you put natural pictures of yourself. Don't listen to what everyone else says about posing for photographs. This includes guys as well. Just be natural. Yes, smile. Be in a sunny field if you want. Being on the beach, take some nice scenery, but put yourself where you actually do want to go and be, what you naturally like. It's no good putting yourself in a picture of you against the beach if you hate beaches, usually, is it? It's no good if you putting yourself in any situation in photographs which is not really the areas that you like to be in, because it's just false. A lot of people, when they're dating, they present a false sense of self to you, and then you can get blinded by that, and that can be really difficult. Some of the things I'm talking about in my Asexuality book, for example, I'm talking about romantic attraction. I'm saying people who are romantically attracted to others are more likely to be susceptible to love bombing, because romantic people often love words that are lovey-dovey, words of admiration. And if your love language is admiration as well, and the more romantic you are, the more that you want to hear lovey-dovey stuff, the more that it actually activates dopamine within you. So if you're hyper romantic, especially like me, you're more susceptible to people love bombing you and you not thinking there's anything wrong with that, because you're so used to thinking about love stuff yourself. You're so used to thinking about romantic movies and wishing the guy and the girl would get together, even if the guy's been really awful to the girl and the girl forgives him in the end. You know, you kind of want the people to get together in the end. Although I really hate that storyline. I'm like, why is it the woman always or girl always has to forgive the guy for someone doing something really bad? I prefer the stories where, you know, it was like life pulled them apart and then they still got back to each other. They're a much better storyline, where compared to the ones where women have to forgive guys all the time for bad behavior. I don't like that at all, because it teaches people, it teaches women that you can put up with shit basically from guys, and if they just say, oh, I'm really sorry, then it's like, oh, all is forgiven, let's kiss and make up and be together forever. It's like, actually, that's not how it works in real life. In real life, if you don't like a behavior from a guy, you have to let him know and explain to him how you want to be treated going forward and what your needs are and the behavior that you need instead. He may listen, he may not listen, but if he doesn't listen and approve his behavior, If he's not accommodating your needs and you're not feeling respected, then you have to leave that connection, which is tough. It's not easy to do. But if you're romantic, you're more susceptible to love bombing. If you're an empathetic person, you're more susceptible to attracting a narcissistic person. If you're kind and empathetic and caring, unfortunately, like, narcissists tend to really love empathetic, kind, caring people, especially at the beginning, because it's like their ego is being stroked a lot, where the person's being really understanding and compassionate, but then they'll flip that over on the other person. Once they got the person hooked, then they'll flip on them, and they'll become like a person that's like you don't recognize anymore, and they'll start being horrible to you, but then you're hooked on their love, or what you think is their love, but it's toxicity, really. And you think because they were kind and nice to you in the beginning that they'll go back to being that way. So you always live with the potential of what they might be like again, rather than reality. So in the 21st century, dating in 2024, we need to get used to dealing with the reality of the person in front of us rather than the potential we're projecting someone to be. This is very important in any dating relationship scenario. So don't just think, oh, this person's got potential to do this, do that, because our minds naturally go, especially if we're a romantic person, to the future. Like, oh, it'd be great because in the future I can do this with that person and that with that person, when we don't even know that person. And that might not be what they want or need or like, even. So we have to have a thing like that holds ourselves back. We have to hold ourselves back from getting carried away, which, if we're a romantic person, can be really hard because we often love, like I said, all the love messages. We like feeling loved up, depending how romantic you are. If you're a little bit romantic, this won't really apply. If you're an avoidant attachment style, you don't value intimacy and relationships in the same way. Although part of you really wants an intimate relationship because you like to feel loved, still the actual commitment of that love relationship, if it's a committed love relationship rather than just casual meeting up and feeling loved, then the commitment is a thing that scares you away. So, if someone's love bombing you and it feels like they're getting too close to you, then you'd more likely to pull away and go cold on them. So it doesn't work the same way with a romantic person who is avoidant and a romantic person who's non-avoidant attachment style. If you've got a romantic person someone who's attracted to someone romantically, but they're avoidant attachment, then they don't want the committed relationship. So while they like the feeling of being loved, they don't want the attachment because it scares them too much. So they want to avoid that deep intimacy as soon as it gets deep. So the love bombing, as you can imagine, be overwhelming for an avoidant. They'll be like, this is too much. I'm going now. So that type of thing doesn't usually work on avoidance, but it's often avoidance that might do that to you because they want the validation back. They want the attention. They want the intimacy in that moment. They want you to feel like you really need them. But then when you actually do need them, they'll be like pushing you away. So this is a generalization. Some people have worked on their avoidant attachment styles and they're not all completely to this extreme, but in general, this is how things play out differently depending on what your attachment style is. There's a lot of avoidant attachments on dating sites. Why? Because they're avoiding real, true intimacy and committed relationships. So on dating sites to hook up, have sex, have something casual, and carry on with their life because they don't want to do the work it takes to deal with their avoidant attachment, to stop them being avoidant, or at least reduce the severity of their avoidance so that they can have a healthy, committed relationship. They'd rather keep pushing away because they don't want to deal with their emotions. They'd rather just push them, repress them, suppress them away, not deal with them because they're avoiding them. So there is a lot of avoidance on dating apps. Obviously, there's going to be quite a few narcissists on there or narcissistic tendency people, even if they haven't got narcissistic personality disorder, which is a proper disorder. There's quite a lot of people who can have narcissistic tendencies. And these people end up back on dating apps because their relationships fail all the time because they don't realize there are the problems. So they'll end up being back on dating sites again. So, and then you've got people who have other attachment styles and other issues going on, who also can end up back on dating apps and dating sites when their relationships don't work out. And a lot of people feel lonely. So they go on dating apps and dating sites because they feel lonely. They want connection. As human beings, we want connection with other people. And rightly or wrongly, people go on there because they're lonely and they want someone to just chat to. Sometimes they want someone to feel empathy for them. Sometimes they just want to chat about their troubles. Sometimes they want to chat about their frustrations. Some of them are sexually frustrated. And some of them are just conning themselves as well as the whole world. And they'd rather live in the fantasy of who people might think they are or do think they are because of how they project themselves to be, but that isn't the reality. If only in life and dating relationships, people would just be their authentic self and not care what other people think. But unfortunately, society conditions people to worry and concern themselves about what other people think of them. And this in turn causes a lot of internal conflict and a lot of disharmony within a person's self. When you are asexual and on dating apps or looking for a relationship, make sure that you explain how your asexuality affects you in those relationships, in those dating scenarios. And make sure you stick to your boundaries. You can still test things out. Some asexuals don't know if they like sexual stuff or not until they've tested it out with the person. And that is okay. Just let the person know, I want to test this thing out, but if I don't want to do it again, I won't ever do it again. And I want you to know that, right? And don't let someone pressurize you into doing something that you really don't want to do. Just say no. If the person leaves you for it, then you've not lost anything. You've lost someone who's trying to sexually abuse you by pushing you into doing sexual things you don't want to do, right? And that isn't a loss, that's a win, right? So we have to remember this. It's hard when you've got a lot of emotions. It's hard when you're anxious attachment, for example. It's hard when you're a romantic, a hyper romantic, or a hopeless romantic. It's hard when you're lonely. All these things are hard. It's tough when you desire romantic connection or just a connection. You don't have to be romantic to want to be on dating sites. You might just want that human connection. You might just want that deepest ever soulmate person, regardless of whether it's a romantic connection or not. You might just want to find your person. And it's tough out there. It's tough because of societal conditioning of how people should look and what people should wear and what people should do. But keep an open mind so much as that, if something's not exactly how you need it, but you can be flexible, then be flexible. For example, I am attracted to skinny, thin guys, which is not normal for the majority of women. But if there was a bigger guy, a guy who was bigger in body mass and weight, then I would still be happy with him if I liked his personality and liked his face, because it's his face I get attracted to the most anyway, and he'd be like a cuddly teddy bear, right? So I'm not opposed to being with a guy who's bigger at all. It's just that I had a bigger guy years ago and he crushed me when he was kissing me. And that kind of put me off. And then I got used to a skinny body on guys and I really liked it. I thought it was good. It's better than, like big, muscly, hairy guys. I don't like big, muscly, hairy guys. I don't like guys that look like gorillas. To me, that's off-putting. It's not attractive, even though tons of women in the world love that. I like a guy who shaves his chest or who, doesn't have chest hair, who waxes and stuff like that. Wish that would be seen as feminine qualities, but to me, it's not. To me, it's personal hygiene. It's actually making it look nicer for the woman. And if he likes that himself, it's great. Obviously, if a guy loves his chest hair, then he shouldn't be shaving that off. Then he needs to find a woman who's fine with that or likes it. So we each have our own preferences. We have preference for personalities, we have preferences for communication, preferences for lifestyle, preferences for deal breakers such as marriage and sex and kids and living together. So we need to establish that the person in front of us, whether it's on a dating app, dating site, or in person, if they're going to match our lifestyle, if they're going to match our energy or complement it, if they're going to be the right communication style for us, if they're going to fulfill our needs. And if they're not, and it's going to be a frustrating and upsetting time, then we need to address that with them. And if it can't be put right because you're just two different people, then you have to move on. So we have to have difficult conversations, and I'm still learning how to do this. This is a process I'm going through myself. I'm very much not perfect. I still have past traumas that I continue to work on to this day. I continue to keep exploring my mind, continue to keep feeling like, why am I reacting like this? Or why am I feeling angry? Why am I feeling sad? Like, what's going on? What do I need to do to feel better? What do I need to do to feel happier in this moment? What do I need to do to communicate that I'm not getting my needs met? What do I need to do to, to sort the situation out? So I'm always continuously working on myself. I'm not perfect. I have got an anxious attachment style, which is an insecure attachment style. And I have got generalized anxiety disorder. These are not easy things for myself to deal with. And actually adding dating and relationship or possible relationship to the mix just makes them worse for me. So, I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm just saying that what we've got to be aware of when we're doing dating and relationships is we've got to look at our own needs, our own difficulties, and try to keep working on ourselves. It's a constant work on ourselves, right? And also try and think of all these things, like, the person in front of us that's messaging us or that we're thinking about messaging, just from reading their bio, seeing what things they like and stuff, like, are we going to be suitable? If you hate smoking and they're a smoker, they're out. Filter them out. If you want kids, they don't want kids, filter them out. If you want marriage, they don't want marriage, filter them out. If you want to live together, they don't want to live together, filter them out. If you have to have a certain eye color, you have to ask yourself, does that really matter? Is that eye color going to affect whether a kind, caring, lovable person towards you, and whether you can have a difficult conversation with them or not? Yes, you might have a preference for blue eyes and blonde hair, for example, but is it really necessary? Is that going to affect how that person is with you just by blonde hair and blue eyes? Don't forget, looks change over time. If you're going for blonde hair, blue eyed person, yeah, their eyes color might not change, but they could get laser treatment later on, which might change the color of their eyes. And also, a lot of people's hair does go grey. A lot of people start dyeing their hair as well, right? So they might be with you, but they might decide they want to dye their hair in like 2 months' time, and you've decided you only like that hair color on them. And yeah, you can say, well, I have a preference for your previous hair color, but they might still want to be a different hair color. They might want to dye their hair green. So hair color, eye color, these things don't really matter in a relationship. It doesn't matter to how caring and kind and considerate they are. Whether they're a skinny person or a large person or a chubby person, voluptuous person, overweight person, that's not really that relevant to how they're going to show up for you, unless they've got, for example, low self-esteem because their weight somehow affects their self-esteem, or they're arrogant because they're insecure about their weight. So they, like, use bullying tactics and aggressive behaviors to compensate for the fact that they're not comfortable in the weight. It's fine to be with someone who's overweight if they're comfortable and confident being like that. And if you're going to be comfortable and confident with them without thinking they have to be a certain size. People do change in body shape. Like, there's not many 80 or 90-year-olds, for example, that will have the body they had when they're 20. Right? That's just a fact. And if you can't deal with that reality, then you're not really looking for some serious committed relationship. You're looking for something just to pass the time, or a temporary relationship. Because you have to think that down the line, if you're looking for serious committed lifelong relationship, right, you have to understand their hair color could change. You have to understand their body type and shape can change. People can get disabilities and health problems later on. You've got to be thinking about all this stuff. You've got to be thinking, can I be with this person if their body shape changes? Can I be with this person if their hair color changes? Can I be with this person if they start doing certain types of things that you might not like? But if their values end up being different to yours, if they end up, for example, killing animals, I'm talking about, like, well, maybe you're a vegetarian, you just hate all animals being killed, whether they're farm animals or other animals. If that's a deal breaker, then you don't be with them, do you? Right? And so you've got to think, people's profession is important. Some people can be in a relationship with someone who's a butcher, for example, if they're a vegetarian. So you've got to be thinking about all these things: lifestyle choices, ethics, morals, values, beliefs. If you've got different values and beliefs, then it's likely to not work. Well, I like a lot of communication, and I like, a lot of messaging. I like to feel included. I like a guy who books dates in advance with me, who makes arrangements in advance. I've always got something on the calendar with them. That's the type of guy I want. Right? For me, that's hard to come by. And I'm quite masculine in some ways, even though I'm very feminine in others, if you like. But I like being masculine. I have a masculine energy. I don't see there's a problem with it. Right? And sometimes I feel that I'm more like a guy in the traditional stereotypical way than a lot of the guys I come across. And I don't know if that's because I'm more masculine, therefore maybe I attract more feminine guys if you're talking about gender roles and masculine feminine energy and traditional stereotypical stuff. I don't know if that's because of that or what, or just because I'm not attracting strong enough guys for me, because maybe they're not actually that interested in me, is the truth. So it's important when you're trying to find someone for a relationship or date in person that you get into conversation with them and start talking to them and see if they are actually available or if they're in a relationship. One of the ways you can do this, if you want to know if someone's in a relationship, you can just slip it into conversation and say, like, so for example, say you met a person in work. Say you met a person in work where you work. You can then slip it into conversation and say, oh, so where does your partner work then? When you're talking with them and having lunch, and they'll be like, I don't have a partner. And you'll be like, oh, right, okay, so you're single then. You know what I mean? Confirm you're single. Say, oh, right, okay, I just assumed you'd have a partner. I always thought you were in a relationship, or something like that. But that's a way of asking them if they're with someone. I do that a lot, if you go to a business event, for example, and you're interested in actually connecting with someone there for a possible relationship, you just say to them, oh, so is your partner into business too then? So you work on the assumption that they have got a partner, and then when they tell you I haven't got a partner, they haven't got one, because you don't make the assumption that just because someone wants to see you or spend time with you or even ask you out, they've not got a partner. You should at some point very early on assess whether they've actually got a partner or not. And you can ask even like, oh, do you have a family? Or assuming you have a wife and kids, for example. I'm assuming you have a husband and kids. And I'd be like, no, why would you assume that? And you'd be like, oh, just I know most people do these days, or something like that. You know what I mean? You have to establish if they got a relationship. There are some people on Badoo, for example, that aren't single. They're actually in relationships. I've seen pictures of people with wedding rings on. Ones that aren't saying about polyamorous relationship, but there are some polyamorous people on Badoo, for example. So if you're going to asexual dating sites like Ace Love, I think is one of the asexual websites, dating websites, it's important to like instigate conversations on there, because what a lot of the problem is in asexual dating groups and on asexual dating apps and dating sites is there's not enough interaction. And it's sad people don't tend to make the effort so much if sex is not involved. And it's like, why? If you want to be a person that's not valued on sex or how much sex you are or are not having, then why, if you're in asexual dating groups, are you not actually being proactive in trying to find someone within them? And you're looking outside of the asexual dating group, saying there's no one that's suitable, instead of looking in the dating groups. I mean, if you've already looked in the dating groups, that's fine. But if you haven't, you should be starting there and writing posts saying, hey, I want to introduce myself. I'm so and so. This is the type of relationship I'm after. This is where I live. Unfortunately, what's difficult for asexuals is we tend to be spread all around the world. So this makes dating and finding a possible relationship really difficult. But what I would encourage you to do is to decide in your mind, are you a person who loves where you live and you're not prepared to move for a relationship? Or are you someone who could move for a relationship? If you're someone who can move for a relationship, you've got more opportunities of finding someone for you, because you can pretty much go wherever in the world you want to go, unless you've got only specific places that you're willing to move to, then you're limited, but not as limited as someone who just only wants to be with someone in their city. And some asexuals are sex positive. Some asexuals do have sex, but some asexuals may not want sex or may not be willing to have sex as much as a heterosexual person would. So that needs to be talked about and negotiated. If you're like a person that is okay to have sex once a week, but your partner wants it 3 times, then you'll have to discuss, is once going to be enough because that's all I can give. Maybe you can do sexual stuff the other times if you wanted to, like touching, foreplay, kissing, caressing, all this stuff. Or maybe you just want like to be okay one time doing sex and the other 2 times you just kiss and cuddle and don't do any of that stuff. And that's a rule you have, that's a boundary you have. So you have to have a lot of open, honest communication in any relationship. But if it's an asexual and heterosexual relationship, for example, you have to have even more open, honest conversation about how you're feeling with the touching and physical closeness, how you're feeling with emotional intimacy, because asexuals tend to love for an emotional connection rather than a physical one. So it's important that we have our emotional needs met. And if we're not having them fully met, we might start to feel neglected, disconnected from our partner. And then we have to talk to them about that. But this is down the line if you're actually getting into a relationship. But you might feel in the early stages of dating that your emotions are being neglected, or that certain aspects of the communication are lacking, in which case you have to speak up. And it's important to speak up as much as possible in the beginning to set the standard that you have for that relationship or dating scenario. Because if you don't set the standard and they just treat you how they want to treat you, then you're not going to filter out the people that are no good for you. And you're allowing people to treat you the way you don't want to be treated, which is just allowing a pattern of behavior to start and continue. And then this is no good. You have to be able to say, hey, for example, I appreciate your messages, but however, you let me down when I didn't hear back from you within a certain time because you said that you were going to get back to me and you didn't follow through. I'm disappointed because I need someone who's reliable, who's trustworthy, who shows up when they say they're going to. This type of thing, because we have to be able to express our needs and emotions, and they should feel that they can do the same with us as well. But if we don't have these discussions, it's hard to actually have full emotional intimacy anyway, because the way we create emotional intimacy is by having more difficult conversations, which can be hard because there can be conflict, which can make you feel more distant as well. So that's kind of like a chicken and egg situation sometimes. But the way we create emotional intimacy is by telling someone what we need. And if we can get those needs filled by each other as much as possible, then we can start to feel closer, like drawn towards our partner. But if we constantly miss each other's needs, then we're like pulling each other apart. Obviously, if you can't naturally meet someone's needs and that it's just unreasonable what they need from you and it just doesn't match your ideology, doesn't match your values, you can't be like that, then you're not compatible and you have to split up. I need someone who's honest, for example. I need someone who's reliable. I need someone who values my time as much as they value their own. And that is really hard to come by these days. Most people are very self-centered, even if they don't mean to be or they don't realize they're being. And their mind revolves around their own life, what they're doing at that specific moment in time and their plans. And they don't go to the other person and say, hey, like, when are you free that I can see you? You know what I mean? They automatically just assume that you'll be there for them at a certain time. And I have this, or had this in the past, should I say, a lot of the time with guys. They expect a woman to just be there for them at the time that they dictate. And if they feel up to talking to the woman, oh, I feel up to talking to you today, so I'll talk to you. Oh, I've got a headache, I'm not feeling whatever, and then I just won't bother speaking to you now. It's like, and sometimes they don't even bother telling you the way they feel. And that's the worst thing. If you're feeling like not happy, under the weather or something, you need to speak up. A woman's not a mind reader. A guy's not a mind reader. So some women believe that guys can read minds and, oh, he should understand me by now and know what's on my mind. Well, how can he if you're not verbalizing it? If his headspace is somewhere completely different, how can he relate to your headspace when he's in a different headspace? So you need to explain how his actions and behavior make you feel without trying to get his back up, if you know what I mean, because we have to be addressing the behaviors like they do with us, addressing what the behavior is they don't like. Of course, two people could clash and you could just have completely different behaviors, which aren't actually toxic in general. They're just no good for each other. For example, I'm very loud, bubbly, energetic. This is no good for a guy who likes to be quiet and who likes someone who's not got an excitement about them. You know, like women should be seen and not heard, for example. I'm not that woman. I'm not that girl, right? If a guy wants that, it's not happening. I like leading a public life. I like being on social media. I enjoy being on this channel. I enjoy sharing my life with the world. I enjoy inspiring asexuals to live a more comfortable, confident, happy life being asexual. I like to show the world that asexuals have fun as well. You know, I go to theme parks when not at the moment because of my back injury, zoos, aquariums, you know, out for meals, to the cinema, self-dating regularly. And it's important to show this that asexual life is good, because there's stereotypes of asexuals and asexuality out there that, oh, you must lead such a boring life because you don't have sex. It's like, actually, my life is more interesting because I don't have sex. Because people that are focused on sex a lot of the time, they work, maybe they study sometimes as well, but in general, they work, they come home. What do? They, you know, have sex or whatever, watch TV, and you know, this isn't a life, people, right? Asexuals who don't have sex to focus on, we have to think of other things to do with our time, like projects to work on. A lot of asexuals are into arts and crafts, creative things like actually artwork or making things out of materials or writing. You know, we're very creative people, a lot of us, not all of us, but a lot of us. Some asexuals are very logical as well, and they like to deal with figures and spreadsheets and numbers and stuff like this. So you do have different types of asexuals. What I'm saying is we've got all the time. We're not having sex. We don't have to, like, if we're not having sex, we don't have to get condoms. We don't have to get you know, things fitted inside us to prevent babies. We don't have to take contraception, which is very bad because it's hormones. We don't, it's very bad in terms of hormones, but obviously it's very good to prevent pregnancy. So I still recommend it if you need it. Obviously, I used to be on the pill, contraceptive pill, for years, but I felt so much better when I was off it, right? Because I used to have sex in the past when I was 2011 was the last time when I was in previous heterosexual relationships, long term. Well, it's not. I have been in. So I've had sex with 5 guys. You probably know that if you've seen my documentary. All in relationships, but 2 of them were long-term relationships. The last time I had sex was in a long-term relationship, and no, it wasn't bad sex. It was good sex as sex goes. But I'm really not interested in sex, and I'd rather be doing other stuff. And now I know that asexuality exists. I found out I'm asexual in 2014. I couldn't bring myself to have sex ever again anyway since 2011, even with really hot aesthetic looking guys. Then I'm really happy to be without sex, and I'm happy with my asexuality. I think it's better if you're happy with your asexuality when you go on dating sites, because you're coming from a place of confidence, of positivity. And I'm like, hey, I can be loved without sex because I'm still a whole person. I've still got so many other qualities to bring to the table as you do. And if a guy has to have sex, he's not my guy, right? He's not my guy. And maybe I'll always be single forever. And that is okay. It's better to be single forever than be with the wrong person. But it doesn't mean to say I can't find someone. I might find someone in 10 years' time or something for me. Do you know what I mean? It's like sometimes you just don't meet the person till a lot later in your life. And sometimes you just don't meet them in this lifetime. Either is okay, right? But we have to be making ourselves happy. Why do I self date every week? Because I'm disciplined with myself, right? If you want to practice like healthy you know, healthy communication before you get into a relationship with someone, practice it with your friends, right? If you want to practice time management, organizational skills, showing up, being accountable, being responsible, then go on intentional self-date. Self-date's not the same as just deciding, wow, I'm in city, I'm hungry, I'll go and grab a sandwich. That's not a self-date. And people are confusing this. A self-date is when you intentionally carve time out in your week to go on an actual date with yourself, right? And this means you stick to the date. You do not deviate from the date unless you're half dead or dying. Then you can deviate from the date, or you know, you've been in an accident or something. Fair enough. But even if you don't feel 100% well, you go. Why? Because it shows you're disciplined. It shows that you follow through on your promises to yourself. Your word is your promise. It makes you be accountable to yourself and responsible for yourself. Of course, there may be times when you feel really so ill you can't go out. But if you feel just oh, like I haven't had many hours sleep, I still go out on a self date. You can shift a date if you need to, but you have to try and keep it, But if you're thinking about dating, you're like, I really need to reschedule with myself. You can reschedule with yourself. The whole point is you then have to pick another time and activity that you're going to do it in a specific time on a specific day, or you can swap it around. So just like sometimes in dating, you might change your date day, although people tend to keep to a set day. Sometimes to spice things up a bit, you change the venue or you change the day and time. So you can do that with yourself as well. But it's all about being intentional in showing up for yourself and having the discipline to follow through on plans with yourself, because this puts you in a more disciplined state when you're going to get into a relationship or dating scenario. If you can't even keep to time management with your own self without having an employer breathing down your neck, you're not very good at time management, really, are you? And maybe you don't need time management, you think. Maybe you just think it's okay to just show up. But some people like you to respect their time. And respecting their time means showing up on time, which means, when you show up on time, you be trustworthy and reliable. If you're not reliable, if you're not showing up on time, if you're being haphazard or casual about it, then you're not actually taking responsibility and accountability for your actions and thinking of other people. But it starts with you. You have to practice this stuff for yourself. I make myself go out on dates, usually every week. I've done it for a long time now. Why? Because I need to trust myself. I need to be accountable to myself. I need to make myself promises and keep to those promises. So, in order to get better at dating and relationships in general, you need to get better at the relationship with yourself. And a lot of people are missing this element out of dating and relationships. They are literally thinking about being with another person all the time, and they are not thinking about how can I improve myself? Like, what areas of my life can improve myself? You're not going to be perfect. You're still going to have flaws. You're still going to have baggage. You're still going to have past traumas. You're still going to have things that is not great, right? But if you can be working on incremental improvements within yourself and your life, then it will help when you get into a relationship or dating scenario. Too many people don't improve themselves, and then when it comes to dating or relationship, they're like, go into it and then things go wrong, and they're like, what happened? Well, it's because you didn't work on yourself. Everyone has to do some work on themselves. They have to do some work on being reliable for themselves, on loving themselves, on caring for themselves, on making themselves happy, on trying to deal with some of the trauma they have in their past life. Past life? I thought about past life because I think about I think about that in my past, which is a good thing, I guess. But, we all have this stuff we have to work on. I'm continuously working on it. It's something we have to do. But we also have to give ourselves reward and grace and time and care and love and attention with ourselves. But the more challenges we overcome, the more resilient we are, and the more we're able to cope with other things life throws at us, which are unexpected curveballs. So I always think it's good sometimes to push for our fears and boundaries. What do I mean by this? Well, dating, you have to push through some fears. It's nerve-wracking approaching a new person. It's nerve-wracking trying to give them your phone number or another method of communication, connecting with them on social media. It's nerve-wracking asking for their Facebook ID. It's nerve-wracking to say, add me. I mean, I've got so used to it in the past, particularly, that it doesn't really bother me so much anymore. And I can drop it into conversation. If you're seeing someone, you can just go, oh, you can add me on Facebook if you want. If they're interested, they'll be like, oh, yeah, tell me your Facebook. If they're not interested, it will just be like, you have not said anything. Like they basically just purposely ignored it, right? If there's a way of giving someone your phone number, then you can do that. You can try and give it in a conversational thing. Like you can ask them a question about something. For example, at a business event, you can say, oh, did you take notes of that last speaker because I missed them? And the person might be like, oh yeah, I took lots of notes. And you'll be like, oh, it's great, but I'm going to the next talk now. Would you mind emailing me those notes like after the event, or putting them in my Facebook Messenger? And they'll be like, oh yeah, sure. What's your email? Or You then say, oh, I'll give you my email address, or I'll give you my Facebook Messenger. Because you ask them, if you ask them something that you need from them in the future, then if they want to be in contact with you, they will be in contact with you. Of course, you could just give them your number. I mean, I saw a few weeks ago, there was actually a builder that was doing some work up the road, and he stopped in the street to talk to this girl, she was a girl that's conventionally what a lot of guys would go for, like slim waist, big boobs, very tight fitting clothing, all makeup. So he's just after her for her body. It was so obvious. He's not even a good looking guy. But anyway, he came out from the other with the other buildings, and he literally just stopped her in the street to get her number. I think if you're asexual, you probably won't want to do that type of thing, but you can if you want to. But you know what I mean? Just drop it into conversation about adding someone on your social media and stuff like that. Because, you know, if you talk to someone, you can say, oh, do you want to keep in touch? We can do so through social media. But if they're not reaching out to you, if they're not communicating with you, and you're just putting all the time, energy, effort into it, they're not really that interested. So you have to forget it. You know, I've had guys that connected with me, for example, on social media, and then haven't spoke to me ever again, even if I had a great time with them when I saw them. So we can't account for other people's you know, insecurities. We've all got insecurities, but we're not responsible for other people's insecurities, but we are responsible for how we treat other people. We don't want to purposely be treating people in a way that's going to cause them to be insecure, because that's just playing mind games or being hurtful, or it's not thinking about another person's feelings or being considerate of their feelings. So when we're doing dating relationships, we need to be very mindful about the way we feel, about what we want, what we don't want. Like as an anxious attached person, I need to find someone really who's either securely attached or another anxiously attached person, probably, because avoidance and anxiously attached people are like the opposite of each other. Avoidance want to avoid too much intimacy and too much conversation and too much, you know, time together. Like, you know, if it gets too close. And anxiously attached people, they want time spent on them. They want lots of messages. They want to be kept informed, because otherwise it just makes us anxious. And so ends up being like a seesaw of emotions. It becomes very unhealthy. But two avoidant people might go really well together. I'm not saying it's going to be a healthy relationship, but it might be healthier for both of them, because they're both got the same aim as avoiding true intimacy, which isn't great because it means that they're not fulfilling their intimacy potential. But two avoidants might work better together. I know a couple of both avoidance, and it seems to work amazingly well for them. So, you know what I mean? It's just like they get each other, I guess, because they've both got that mentality. Whereas sometimes it's good to have another anxiously attached, but a lot of the time it isn't. It's better if you can get a securely attached person, because anxiously attached can make each other too anxious as well, because one can play off the other. So you have to do work on yourself to become less anxiously attached. So you don't, like, you know, so you become more securely attached. Even if you're anxious by nature, you become more securely attached. Otherwise, if you don't get to a place where you're more securely attached, then, you know, it can just be that you feed off of each other's anxiety. Like one person's worried about in case they get banned, and the other person's worried in case they get banned, and yeah, you know, and you get to the stage where you're kind of the unhealthy side of anxious attachment is you can get like you're monitoring each other instead of actually being open, communicating with each other and being in each other's lives in a comfortable way. You're kind of monitoring all the time, which isn't a healthy position to be in when you're doing this monitoring thing. But expressing your feelings and emotions to each other, and telling the other people telling the other person about your day and sharing your day with them and how it's going and stuff like this can really help relieve anxiety. It can help to feel connected to your partner, especially if they are anxiously attached. It can help to bond you closer together. It can help you to feel closer to each other and create more understanding and compassion for each other's different lives. If you don't share your life with the other person, how's the other person supposed to know what's going off in your mind, going off in your life, what your position is in life, the difficulties you face? If you got a person who's like avoiding talking to you about their life, yet you're meant to be their priority in their life, or at least one of the priorities, then you can't really understand that person if they're then saying, well, you don't understand me, I didn't message back because I was doing X, Y, and Z. It's like, how are you supposed to know they're doing X, Y, and Z unless they tell you roughly their schedule, for example? Like, if they've got, like, university, like, 4 times a week and they're working at weekends, they need to communicate that with you. Because if they can't have their phone switched on at work, you might be left wondering, like, what the hell's going on? Why aren't they messaging you? But yet they're just working, or maybe they've got study in the evenings, or maybe they do extracurricular activities, or maybe they've got groups like a tennis group or a meetup group they go to regularly, all this type of thing. You need to know roughly their schedule because it's considerate of each other to know each other's schedule so that you can work around each other's schedule and understand where each other's coming from in their own life. So it fosters more understanding and the connection together. Because the whole point of a relationship is being together, it's togetherness. Without being glued to each other, it's still togetherness. You have to have a degree of talking to each other about each other's lives, especially if you don't live together. If it's long distance or any distance, why, if you're not together, you need to actively communicate. Otherwise, how is a person supposed to know what's going on? They don't know where they stand. I can't stand that type of thing. That's why I really like being single by myself, because I'm very reliable for myself. I'm very hardworking for myself. I show up for myself on my dates, even if I'm not feeling very well, even if I'm tired. I don't make those excuses. To me, that's just, to me, that is being too weak. Like, that's my personal opinion. Like, if I am feeling a bit tired, okay, I'm a bit tired. I can make the hours of sleep up later. Right, I'm in a bit of pain. Okay, well, if you can still walk and you think you're going to enjoy yourself, then go, right? Like, you know, it's just like, don't make excuses. Just get on and do the thing and take the action. I'm all about taking action. I try and be the person I admire. I want a person who's reliable. Am I reliable for myself? Yes. Do I show up for myself? Yes. Do I show up no matter what, pretty much? Yes. Even if I'm feeling tired, even if I'm not feeling 100% well, I still show up for myself. Am I willing to have a bit of spontaneity? Like, can I go and do a few things that I've not planned? Yes, I can do a bit more spontaneous stuff than I used to because I think it's healthy and good for me to try different things. I purposely push myself to try different things now as well in my city and go different places because I think it's a healthy thing to do, and I think it's adding more spice and variety to my life. So even though I'm not in a relationship, and they say if you're in a relationship or dating, you've been in a relationship or dating scenario for a while, you shouldn't be in a dating scenario forever. I mean, after a person's been dating you for about 3 months, they should know whether they want a relationship with you or not. Although there's no hard and fast rules, a lot of the time it is around the 3-month mark when they usually should know if they actually want a relationship with you, something serious or not. Right? But if we're expecting a person in a relationship or dating scenario to be X, Y, and Z, I want us to ask ourselves, are we being that way for each other? Or are we being that way for ourselves, I should say? Are we being that way for ourselves? Then we can be it in a relationship or dating scenario. Or are we slacking? So I come across some guys in my life that they're like, oh, I showed up to uni like late for lessons, or I didn't go to a lot of lessons. I just dossed around. I'm like, well, you're not really going to show up on time for me, are you? Because you don't value time. And you're not really going to be committed to the work you have to do in a specific given time. Do you know what I mean? All these type of things that they're not doing correctly in other parts of their life, they're not healthy behaviors, they're then going to translate in a dating or relationship scenario. So you've got to ask yourself, am I being healthy in my behaviors when I'm single? Because if I'm not being healthy in behaviors when I'm single, what the hell makes you think you're going to be healthy for someone when you get into a relationship? You're not just going to be the same person. If you show up to things on time, great. But if you're late for other things, you're going to be late for a partner. And maybe you don't mind wasting your time and other people's, but they mind you wasting their time. Right? If you can't be reliable to get the groceries for your mum, for example, if you live at home still with your parents and your mum's like, can you please get X, Y, and Z when you come home from work? right? And you're like, yeah, mum, I'll get it. But you don't get it. That's unreliability. You're going to take that unreliability through to a dating or relationship scenario. Then the person's going to think you're unreliable, which makes you untrustworthy because you can't keep to your word and they can't rely on you, right? So when you are single, it is the perfect opportunity and time. In fact, it's a must have to be making sure that you are displaying as many healthy behaviors as possible. This means showing up on time for things or early for things, having good time management skills as much as possible, being punctual, showing interest in other people, showing compassion and empathy and caringness and kindness and sensitivity, but also sticking up for yourself and not taking bullshit. Right? You have to have an air of sticking up for yourself and saying, actually, I don't like to be treated this way. Right? But we also have to understand that some people will treat us the way we don't want to be treated. And then we have to decide what to do from there. If it's a situation where we can have a conversation with someone, then that's great. If it's not, then we probably have to leave that scenario. But sometimes we do have to deal with work with a difficult customer, for example. Although I had a difficult customer years ago, and he ended up, when I left, asking me out on a date, which I was completely shocked by. So I used to manage Blacks, which is a camping and leisure company in the UK. And there was this guy, and he bought a pair of boots back, I think it was. And these were like walking boots, but they were meant to be waterproof and they were leaking water. So I had to send them away to be tested. I couldn't just give him his money back because that was company policy. And so he was like causing a huge fuss at the front of the queue, holding the queue up. Everyone in the shop could hear him, and he was basically having a go, blah, blah, blah. And I had to try and have empathy for him, but without actually taking liability or responsibility for it, that we were going to pay for it for definite because it had to go away for testing. That was a company policy. So in the end, right, I think in the end he got a new pair of boots or something. And anyway, he came back when he knew I was leaving because I went to work at another company because I got paid more. And he asked me out on a date. And I'm like shocked. I'm like, this guy went from being like one of the worst customers that you could imagine in terms of like being quite angry with me, even though it wasn't my fault. His boots were leaking, angry at the fact that I had to send him away. I wouldn't just give him his money back, being really like boisterous, to after I said I was leaving, he goes, "Oh, I can ask you out now then. Do you fancy going for a drink?" And I'm like, "Well, no." I think I said, "Well, actually, I like younger guys." I think that's what I said to him. So, but I was completely shocked. So, people can change, but you could argue, like, why do people change like that from going really angry to like, he really liked me. Apparently, he really liked my customer service as well. Like afterwards, I think, he's like, "Oh, you did a really good job for me," blah blah blah. So it's just shocking. But I also had a member of staff at one point that asked me out as well, and I had no idea that he was interested in me. But again, he was an older guy. I'm not interested in guys near my own birth certificate age or older. I'm just not interested in them. I don't find them attractive. It's I don't want to be physically close to them because I am actually literally attracted to young guys, just like some younger guys are attracted to older girls. So there's a lot of women I come across and they're like, "Oh, like like I'm a certain age." Like, for example, I'm in the Love Life Club with Matthew Hussey's Love Life Club. I'm not allowed to divulge what's said in there, but I can say there are some women that are, like have a idea that younger guys won't want an older woman, but it's absolute load of rubbish. There are lots of younger guys out there like older women. The difficulty is if you're asexual like I am and like younger guys, then a lot of them just want sex or to hook up or something temporary or casual. They don't want a serious committed relationship with an older girl a lot of the time. Well, particularly if sex is not involved. They can go for older women if sex is involved because it's the sex they really love with an older woman. She's very experienced. She knows what she's doing. She knows how to treat his body right. She knows how to activate all his erogenous zones. Yes, I do have actual experience in this. That's why I'm smiling, even though I don't want sex again. So it's not like I don't know how to do all that for a guy. I'm very good at being able to know all that type of stuff about a guy, which might surprise people as I'm asexual. But yeah, I used to be involved in long-term relationships in the past with heterosexual guys. This is going back to, like I said, 2011. I'm not interested in doing that nowadays. I'm not interested in that at all. I much prefer the kissing, and I don't want a relationship that's based on sex or having sex, because I just want the kissing, and I think looking back on it, it's like, oh, I'm so relieved now I don't have to have that, and I can just focus on kissing needs. And if a guy doesn't like kissing as much as I do, that's going to be very difficult, because I've tried to think to myself, okay, Sandra, if you get into a scenario with a guy, maybe you don't have to do as much kissing, because it's more important to get a really kind, caring guy. But obviously, if you wasn't that into kissing at all, it would be a major problem for me, because that is some intimacy that I really do need. So even though I don't want sex, I do understand why some heterosexuals need and want and like sex, because I need, want, and like kissing so much. I know they're two different things, but they're both physical needs in a relationship. So I can understand it. And it's about compatibility. But it's got to be, surely, I believe, at least one younger asexual guy, particularly Indian somewhere, hopefully, that does like an older girl permanently. Because just like there's guys out there that are heterosexual that like an older woman, and they like to have a permanent relationship with an older woman, particularly because sex is involved, there'll equally be some guys that love older women but get frustrated that they all want sex, because a lot of older women do like a lot of sex with younger guys, because they think a younger guy is very fertile and got a nice whatever they think, and and they like a young body and everything like that. So the guy tends to like a woman because she's more well developed. Like, actually, if she can be a bigger woman, she tends to have bigger breasts and bigger hips, and guys tend to find all that type of thing really, really attractive. Plus, she tends to have a lot more experience than younger women, so he likes her experience and mind and all that type of thing, because he can learn a lot from her and be educated, and it's always kind of an interesting. Plus, she usually knows what to do with him sexually as well, so that's why younger guys do like older women in a lot of ways, and they get messed around by younger girls, some of them who don't know what they want, right? But then a lot of older women like younger guys because they love the sex with younger guys, because of their body's younger, you know what I mean? They're not, they're more ripe, I guess, for the woman. I don't like talking about this, but because I don't like sex with young guys, but I love physical intimacy, but not the sex. So it's kind of really weird. But there's going to be some guys in the world that think, why can't there just be some women or one woman who's asexual, who likes younger guys but without a sex, because they'll be equally frustrated that they think there's no girl out there for them, because it must be so frustrating if there are asexual guys out there that specifically like young if there are asexual guys out there that specifically like older women, because they must be so frustrated that all they get constantly is older women wanting sex with them, just like I get frustrated that most younger guys want sex with me because I'm older. So there must be some younger guys that get frustrated that all the women want is sex with them, and they don't want that, but they still value a woman's older energy and stuff like that. Because some guys, who are really genuinely into older women, they can't be with a younger girl because they don't relate to them. They rate them more like a mate, like just a friend, but they could never actually be in a relationship with them because they're not on the same energy level. They're not on the same mentality wavelength. They just don't gel together. That's kind of like it is like with me thinking about like a guy. I mean, I get the odd guy who's near my birth certificate age that I might be attracted to, but it's few and far between. And I'm just really not into that because I don't feel the same way. Like when I went to the Bollywood party on Sunday, it was great because I was around my age group as far as I'm concerned, because I don't care about my birth certificate age, so my mindset and my soul is like 20s. I live like a teenager. So the fact that most guys there were in their 20s, early to mid 20s, is just ideal for me because I feel like I'm in my element. I feel really comfortable and confident. I feel like I'm meant to be there and just enjoying myself and having fun. So, but obviously it's hard because I like younger guys, because a lot of younger guys might not know what they want. They might not be settled because they might still be studying. They might just want to go partying and not actually want a serious committed relationship. So that is the harder side of liking younger guys. I mean, I have their energy or more energy than them a lot of the time. And I have a similar sort of mindset in terms of lifestyle, in the sense that I like to go out clubbing, I like to go cinema, eating out, all that type of thing, which guys in their 20s usually do. And, you know, sometimes I might want to do stuff that's even younger than they would want to do. But, you know, there is kind of like this wild party side to some of them, which means they don't actually want to settle down on it. And they're just not, a lot of them, obviously, are like Indian guys. So a lot of them just want arranged marriages and kids and family and sex. And it's like, not only am I asexual, I'm attracted to Indian guys who usually want sex, marriage, kids, and to live together. And I don't want any of those things. I'm very different to my own culture. So I think we have to bear in mind with dating relationships, if we are different to our own culture, if we're kind of like a rarity with our asexuality and with other nuances as well, and then we have to realize that we are looking for a needle in a haystack more than other people are, because we're looking for specific things from others to match our nuances. So that is going to be harder, but it doesn't mean to say it doesn't exist, right? I believe there's some guy out there right now thinking, God, I wish I had a girl, and the girl they wish they had was like me. I don't know where that guy is in the world, but I bet he's so frustrated. I bet right now he's tearing his hair out going, oh, I'm so fed up getting the wrong girl. Actually get young girls attracted to me like older girls, and I'm getting so fed up with it because I'm asexual and I don't want sex and they all want sex, and it's and I'm like, yes, I know exactly how you feel, because I'm the opposite way around, liking younger guys but not the sex. So I know if I did have sex it would be with younger guys. I'm only aesthetically attracted to younger guys, but I'm not interested in having sex again ever in my life. So I'm just not interested. And so for me, there's a lot more passion in kissing anyway. It lasts a lot longer. It's a lot more exciting, a lot more thrilling, a lot better exercise for the body. It's a lot less messy, no sexually transmitted diseases unless you're doing other things. And so yes, it's very important to me, kissing. So it's hard because I think maybe I won't be able to kiss quite as much, because, you know, like I can't, you know, if a person's got stuff of their own to do, they can't be kissing me every single minute of the day. And I don't want to kiss every single minute of the day, actually, even though I love kissing. I don't, because I need intellectual conversation. You know, if I didn't have intellectual conversation, I would literally feel I was being used for my kissing only, and that's not good for me. So actually, I don't just want kissing, just to make that clear. But yeah, so it's really difficult. Dating and relationships are not easy, but when you throw asexuality into mix, and then the nuances of whether you like sex or don't like sex, whether you like touching or don't like touching, how much you like being touched, whether you touch others, whether you like sexual acts but no sexual intercourse, whether you do like nudity or don't like nudity, all these things come into play when you're asexual. Obviously, it's better if we can find some other person that's asexual on an asexual dating site or asexual dating group or asexual dating app. But if that's not happening, then we have to look elsewhere and try and find someone that's suitable for us with our niche needs, which may happen or it may not happen. But I still think it's possible to happen. I think anything's possible. I mean, there's billions of people, aren't there, around the world? And there are literally hundreds of thousands of different people. And 1% of the population, which is asexuality, probably more people are asexual, but recall 1% of the population is asexual, then, you know, it's 1 in every 100 people we meet is likely to be asexual. I mean, if we go to, for example, I don't know, a big arena where you see like a pop star or something, there's going to be thousands of people there, and just think there's going to be a selection of asexuals in that audience. So you never know when you might bump into another asexual, but obviously a lot of them don't just go like I do, going, hey, I'm asexual. But I hope one day to find an Indian guy that's actually openly asexual and fine about being public like I am, you know, because that would be ideal if he was in the UK and didn't want sex and didn't need marriage and didn't need kids and was happy to live separately. But yes, I know that's quite rare, but it doesn't mean to say it doesn't exist. And I think it's important that we spend time on our own as well. I think it's important that we love ourselves. So we can't be good in dating if we're not good with ourselves. I repeat that. We can't be good in dating if we're not good with ourselves. So we do need to build our self-esteem up, do need to build our self-confidence up. We do need to build hobbies and interests of our own in our own asexual life so that we feel whole and not bored with our lives. There's some people that feel bored with their asexual life. So I'm thinking, why? You've got all the time in the world to do all your projects, to go to meetups, to do projects, to do online courses. There's just so much you can do with your time. You can go on self dates, you can go for a walk in the middle of the countryside with no one around if you're introverted and don't want to see anyone. You can do an online course from the comfort of your own home without ever speaking to someone these days. It's not like you can't be learning and doing stuff. Do you know what I mean? There's no excuse really, but people do like to make excuses. That's the problem. They like to make excuses, go, "Oh, I can't change, I can't do this, I can't do that." Well, change is incremental. You're changing all the time. Nothing stays the same forever. So whether you like it or not, your life's going to change, which means you're going to have to change in some way. So it's better to make change happen for you rather than it happening to you. This doesn't mean to say it's easy. It can be really, really tough. But once we build the muscles to do more things and change in productive ways, then we can actually grow in confidence, self-esteem, resilience to things, which will make us more hardy and hard-wearing in a relationship, if you know what I mean. Or even just make us stronger as a single person so that we feel better about being single and we feel happier, And even though I talked at the beginning of this live stream about being in a society that's full of stereotypes, and that's causing a lot of problems in relationships as well, because guys are trained traditionally to be a certain way, to be macho, to be masculine, to shut down their emotions, to be emotional is still a lot of the time seen as a weakness, and to have big muscly hairy body is seen as strong, right? This really makes guys who don't have that type of body feel really inadequate and insecure. They look at other guys on social media and think, I don't have that body, I don't have those looks, and they can't get their body in that shape. Their body just doesn't work like that. So instead of thinking, I'm going to embrace my body and feel happy having a different body shape to the majority of the world population, or the majority of the people that flash their bodies around, instead of embracing it, they're getting insecure about it and not liking themselves. But we have to come from a place of security as much as possible before we get into a relationship with someone or a dating scene. Otherwise, we'll get torn alive and it won't be healthy, because those guys that are insecure about their looks will then either project that onto a girl or whatever gender they're interested in, or they'll be the opposite, and they'll be egotistical to compensate for that, or they'll be digging at the partner's looks because really they're insecure about their own looks. Like, someone who's secure about their own looks doesn't need to have a dig at someone else about their looks, doesn't need to pose the most amazing looking photographs of their body, because they're secure. If you're secure about yourself, you don't need to flash your body off. Like, I'm not saying you don't need to be proud of your body, but there's guys on dating sites that are particularly posing in certain poses with their muscles stuck out, which is not a natural pose. They're just doing it for the camera to get women's attention. So what? You get a woman's attention who likes a muscly guy. Do you think that woman's going to be necessarily any good for you in a relationship? Do you think they're going to be committed to you? Do you think they're going to be kind to you? Do you think they're going to be considerate just because they might have the most amazing looking body? Like I said, bodies change, hair colors change. They might not have the qualities you're actually looking for. So you might be able to attract a hot girl, but it doesn't mean to say they're going to be good in terms of personality or compatibility with you. So we have to be going on more than just looks. Yes, I do experience aesthetic attraction, so looks are important for me. But for me, it's a guy's face more than anything else. Below the waist, I don't really care about, but his face is the most important thing to me, because that's what I get attracted to the most. And I do have beard repulsion. So I can't be in a relationship with a guy with a beard, which is going to be very difficult for me if a guy decided to grow a beard, because I probably would end up not attracted to him that much, because I'm repulsed by beards. So I need to try and find a guy who likes being clean shaven all the time, beardless. But people can change. They could decide to grow stubble, but some guys naturally have a baby face and can't really grow much stubble, which is my preference, really. Even though the guy might look really, really young, because I don't like facial hair. I can't stand it, and if a guy grows a big bushy beard, I just really don't like kissing that. I don't like seeing that. I'm repulsed by the actual beard. So we all have our deal breakers, and we have things that we can tolerate and things we can't tolerate in terms of looks, We have things that we want in a partner, qualities, but instead of looking for superficial stuff like just the looks, the body shape, the height, and all this type of thing, we have to be looking for personal qualities in a person that will enable us to have a healthy relationship, such as reliability, good valuing of our time as well as their own, punctuality. So we've got punctuality, timekeeping, time management, organizational skills, reliability, trustworthiness, honesty, compassion, caringness, kindness, empathy, sympathy, love, understanding, consideration, respect, all these type of things. We need to be finding a person who also wants to grow in a relationship with us. So if we've got a person in front of us who really is unemotionally available for a relationship, even if they're emotionally available as a friend or hookup or casual acquaintance, if they're not available for an actual long-term serious committed relationship, that's what you want. You're incompatible, it's not going to work, and it's going to end up with one of you being upset, in pain, and you have to end it. Right? You can't stay in contact with someone who wants completely different things to you when you've got feelings for them and it's gone too far. It's past the friendship stage. It's not going to be healthy for you. So you've got to try and find someone who's likely to be compatible with you in the first place, on values, on ethics, on morals, values, beliefs, and on personal attributes. Far too often, me included, we look at the things that are not actually going to matter long term, like some of the more superficial stuff. Like I do experience asexual attraction, but I have to not let asexual attraction be more overpowering than a need to be with someone who's respectful of my time, who's kind and caring, who's considerate, who's highly communicative with me, all the things I really need in a relationship for it to be healthy for me. Like different people have different communication levels and stuff. Some people like communicating like once every few days or whatever, or maybe just one message a day. I like more than that. So otherwise it feels I'm disconnected from the person. It feels like the person's not that invested in me, not that interested in me. They don't care as much about me. This is in a serious relationship, or someone I'm close to, not someone I don't know that well. Someone who's acquaintance friend, for example. I'm talking about someone who's like, if you've got a friend that you're really close to, or in a serious committed relationship. I like hearing from that person a lot. It makes me feel connected to them. I like to know what's happening in their life. I like them sharing their life with me. It feels good. It feels like you're still having some sort of interaction when you're apart, and that's important to me. So I think it's important to establish early on what communication styles you got, what needs you've got, what love languages you've got, ideally what attachment styles you've got. If you can somehow do it subtly, you could just say to them, do you know anything about attachment styles? And I'll be like, what? Because if the person hasn't worked on themselves and don't understand attachment styles, they won't have a clue what you're talking about. But you could just ask them and then tell them, like, oh, well, avoidant attachment, for example, is someone that values their alone time and being on their own more than they value being in an intimate, serious, committed relationship. And they go, oh, that's me. Then they're an avoidant. They might be happy to just say that information, because if they're really scared of commitment and they don't want to commit a relationship, it might be like, yeah, sure, I'm like that, because they're avoiding it. So they're quite happy to say I'm avoiding it. Right. But if you got someone who's like, oh no, I overthink things, I worry about things in the relationship, I worry if my partner's all right or not, they're more likely to have an anxious attachment style. So you can tell just by asking these type of things. You can, with love languages, there's a website called lovelanguages.com that you can take a test on there, like a quiz. And it can be a quiz if you're looking for friendship or relationship. And it tells you your love language. And then you can see if you're compatible or not. So you can ask them to take the test, lovelanguages.com. Even if you're not in a relationship, you can just say, oh, I know we're not in a relationship, but on lovelanguages.com, they do this quiz for friendship or relationship, where it enables you to find out what the person's love language is, as in how to speak to them or communicate, or what they love the most to make them feel loved, special, cherished, and adored, which works in a friendship or relationship. They can click whichever one they want, because it's a good idea to do that test to see if you're compatible. As if someone's love language is acts of service and your love language is quality time, that means they need to give quality time for you in order to feel loved. So schedule time in with you, make time in messages for you. It's all to do with time, respecting your time, valuing your time, showing up on time or earlier, carving out like a 3 hours block for you, like that time's just set aside for you. They're not distracted. Make sure you have a date night and stuff like this. But if the other one's acts of service, they'll be needing you to do things for them, like maybe like make them sandwiches for lunch if you're living together, give them a massage, do things that are in of service to them, basically this type of stuff. So you've got to give the person the love language that's their love language rather than your own, which can be difficult if you're not really into their love language. So all these things are good. You can still do them in the early stages, but you just do them in a fun way rather than a like interrogational way, or saying, right, okay, I'm doing this because I'm saying, are we compatible for a relationship? Yes or no? And of course, in your head, you might be doing that, but you don't have to say that to them in a specific moment. You can just say, oh, like, do you know your attachment style? Have you heard of attachment styles? And you can just ask it casually and ask scenarios, and love languages. You can just say, oh, I like to, it's a quiz I like to do with people just to find out, even as a friend, how they like to be communicated with. What makes them feel valued and special and cherished and adored, this type of thing. What makes them feel good. Change your language to however you feel most comfortable talking to them, right? But on dating sites and dating apps, beware of scammers, beware of people that say things and don't follow through with their actions, or who give you all the actions but their words are not the same. So words and actions both have to meet. You could have a person who's doing a lot of the actions, but yet they're saying really horrible stuff to you. They could be buying you gifts and flowers and showing up at your work to take you for lunch, but then they could be saying, but I don't want a committed relationship. They don't add up, right? Or you can be saying, I really love you, I care about you so much, and then you don't hear from them for like a day or two. That's not someone who really loves you and cares about you that much. That's someone who's like valuing their time more than they value your own. They're not really thinking about you, and they're like, I can take you or leave you, because if I don't message you today, it's no skin off my nose, it doesn't bother me. But someone who's really into you will be like, I need to message this person. I need to see how they're doing. I care. Someone who genuinely cares about you will be like, I need to message them to see how they're doing, see how their health is, because they care about you, and stuff like this. So watch out for these type of things. Watch out for people online that are women, for example, with looking like they've been in a strip club or something, and that are basically trying to redirect you to their OnlyFans page. If you're a guy watching this, then be very wary of that. They do it on Facebook all the time. There's a lot of fake profiles that say they're some person who's like a person in the army, and they're widowed and they're a God-fearing man. That usually means I'm actually a scammer who's not really widowed, but I put that down to make myself look so cool, and the God-fearing man to make myself look so cool. And I usually live in somewhere like Texas and America and all this lot. There's a lot of fake stuff that's coming on Facebook as well, like that. So, and they've not really got anything on their Facebook profile apart from a couple of pictures that they've probably stolen off someone else's profile. So if something looks dodgy, think it's dodgy. Use your intuition. If they're saying, I want a serious committed relationship, but I also want something casual, those two are contradictory terms. They're not honest, they're not contradictory, but they either don't know what the friggin' hell they want, or they're just lying because one's contradicting the other, or they're both, right? It's two different things. So it just contradicts itself. It doesn't add up. It's not logical. So if someone says they don't smoke, then they've got a picture of them having a cigarette in a photograph on a dating site or dating app, which I've seen before, they're liars. So you don't approach those people. So if someone should just put everything down, like for hobbies and interests, they've listed like 40 things, for example, on a dating app. They're just doing that to basically get as many likes as they can, because they want to tick as many boxes as they can to get the most amount of matches. So it's better to go for someone on a dating app or dating site that's got less hobbies and interests, right? It's good for them to have like between 5 and 10 maybe, or even 3 is okay. But if they got like 5 interests, that's quite good, that's pretty normal. But if they got excessive amount of interest, they're just literally ticking everything. And they don't know what they want. They're not willing to say no to people usually, because they just have everything to impress people. And they're just playing a numbers game. So, you want to be avoiding these type of behaviors. If they barely say anything in bio, again, they're probably just looking to hook up and not want anything serious. If they're not asking you questions about yourself, and you're just asking questions about them, that's a red flag for them not really being interested in you. If they're not telling you much about themselves, but they want you to reveal a lot about yourselves, they often are using that so that they can find out your vulnerabilities and use it against you. The less you know about them, the better. They're hiding something. They might even have a partner. So avoid this. You want someone who's asking you questions and sharing parts of their life with you and vice versa. Okay, so look out for all these things. Go and grab yourself a copy of Diary Confessions of a Hyper-Romantic Asexual, 78 Life Lessons to Ace Your Life, to find out more life advice, life lessons about love, life, dating, and relationships. So confidence as well is in there, self-care is in there. So don't forget, grab a copy of that on Amazon. Get yourself a copy of my other best-selling book, Asexual Perspectives, as well. And Fibromyalgia Self-Help Handbook if you're into superhero style books. So yes, I'm going to grab those from Amazon and subscribe, hit the bell icon. Give this video a thumbs up if you like it. Share it with a friend or anyone you think may benefit from it. Any comments or questions, please leave them down below, and I'll see you soon in the next video. Lots of love. Bye. Take care.